The buses are finally rolling.
The Dan York State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Taco Comfort Solutions.
You know, late last week we were looking to get the spokespeople or the negotiators for either side of the bus strike on here, scheduled for today, one way or the other, and it turned out it must have been the show. It's clearly the show. You know, forget the pressure that they put on themselves, forget the need to go back to school, forget the parents and what they need and the kids what they need and what the politicians are clamoring for. It's clear that the Dan York State of Mind demanded to see these people next week, and they just settled up. And a little punchy, just a funky weekend. How about those Patriots, by the way? See, that's the team that the Giants need to be. You know, and the Chiefs, holy cow, that was a football game last night. All right, let's get to let's get to the first conference. By the way, you're going to meet Nick Williams from the Teamsters Local Union here to explain how we got here. Maybe a little retro, how we had this break and how we got there, what they wanted, what they got, and what the future holds. So stay tuned for that. In the meantime, the president appeared on 60 Minutes. And for some reason, what does that headline say? Trump defiant unloads on. I don't know that he was defiant. I mean, roll it.
It's okay. We'll have another fight with you.
Leslie, it's okay. In the meantime, I'm president and you're not.
President Trump and 60 Minutes' Leslie Stahl went back and forth on a variety of topics, including climate change.
Yeah, but what about the scientists who say it's worse than ever?
You'd have to show me the scientists because they have a very big political agenda.
Today, the president will visit areas of Florida and Georgia that were hard hit by Hurricane Michael. Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen told Face the Nation the president needs to take climate change more seriously.
You have the Trump administration and a lot of Republicans who just want to put their head in the sands. They don't want to hear the information.
And he refused to pledge not to end Special Counsel Robert Mueller's Russia investigation.
There was no collusion of any kind.
But you won't
pledge?
There is
no collusion. I don't want to pledge. Why should I pledge to you? If I pledge, I'll pledge. I don't have to pledge to you, but I have no intention of doing it.
To date, 32 people have been charged or pled guilty.
You know, in the president's defense, the idea that she wanted him to pledge that he wouldn't end the Mueller investigation it's just journalistic opportunism. That's all. You know, everybody wants to be able to ask the defining question to get the defining answer. I don't think he's handled this Mueller investigation well at all. I don't think he's going to end the Mueller investigation in any dramatic form. I think he's going to do everything he can to kind of, you know, slow play it till it becomes irrelevant with America. I don't think it will become irrelevant with America. I think when it comes out, there's going to be a lot to answer for. But the idea, you know, he talks about babies and who's a baby and who's not. He's not a baby. You really ought to watch it on 60minutes.com or CBS.com if you haven't seen it. But the idea that it's like, I'm president, you're not, Leslie. When it comes right down to it, just remember, with him, you're not with him, you know, you buy in, you don't buy in. At the end of the day, that's the line that dictates his presidency. He is, and you're not, meaning we're not, so that's the whole ballgame. All right, let's come home. Speaking of ballgames, I don't know how this saga ends other than with mutual Armageddon on the Republican side. So Joe Trillo hits Mattiello with a caulking gun in 1975. Now, we were talking about this last week, but the story grows because late last week, media outlets, including my own radio program, sought out the police reports on this incident that occurred in the mid-'70s, where Joe Trillo, his version, comes running down the street to the rescue of a 13-year-old girl who's being harassed, he says, by a group of boys, one of whom is Nick Mattiello at age 12, 13, or 14, something like that. He's waving his arms, whacks him in the head inadvertently. Well, it turns out the police reports say something different. They say nothing about the girl, and they talk about a caulking gun that he was using doing some work around the house when he'd had enough with these guys who were playing football and using the, the expletive deleteds, and blah, 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 blah. It's this whole thing, and so, you know, and Nick Mattiello, as a kid, suggests he got hit upside the head 3 times with the caulking gun. So his father was very upset, and 2 days later came in and wanted to press charges, and the police reports are actually kind of interesting. Nobody denies that there was contact with the caulking gun, but the actual sergeant who wrote the report suggests that Mattiello was a brat and one of those kids that terrorizes the neighborhoods, I'm paraphrasing. So, you know, Mediello should be careful what he asks for, because it was his operatives, by the way, that started leaking this story on behalf of Alan Fung. This is all the behind-the-scenes stuff. But the bottom line here is that this came out, and it makes Trillo upset. And he can't calm down about it, and he told me this on the radio program on Friday.
Just fires me up more to basically go after Fung. It just fires me up more. You know, it just goes to show you what he is. He's got to go back 40 years with me, and every time he brings this up, I'm going to bring up the fact that he killed a guy, and he knocked him 96 feet in the air, and he sealed the report, and he won't open it.
Look, this is something that happened when Alan Fung was 18 years of age. There was an initial charge. It began a process. There was no indictment from the grand jury, and the documents were sealed. Fung says it's too difficult for him to look back on it, and the Joe is digging up dirt. Trillo's saying, well, he's digging up my dirt. And Joe got so upset last week that he said, listen, even if I have 2% in the polls, you know, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure Alan Fung's not a governor. That's problematic, because then all of a sudden then it becomes personal, and it's not about the issues. Trillo thought about it over the weekend, issued a press release. Here's the headline that goes along with that. It says, this is not a personal vendetta. I really want to be governor. Oh, okay. That's a good thing. But then you get headlines like this today in the Providence Journal about just the nature of the whole thing. And the zero-sum game here is such that it's just to the place now that these two guys are probably going to just, you know, beat each other to a pulp, and Gina Raimondo remain in the 43 to 47% category and walk away with this thing. That's it. That's it. Now, how is this going to, how could this have been resolved? Alan Fung knew that Joe Trillo was interested in running for governor, knew Patricia Morgan was interested in running for governor. In big boy politics, we use Donald Trump's language, in big boy politics, you work that stuff out at the beginning. But Fung didn't want to work with Morgan and Trillo. He didn't want to offer them opportunities to join him. He didn't like them. So that kind of juvenile thought process is what gets you opponents. And then you end up with this mess. You know, it's kind of the way it goes in politics. By the way, Trillo can't get out of the race. His name's on the ballot now. That deadline passed. So even if you said, I don't want it, you know, dummies will go to the voter, Trillo, because, you know, no, people don't think. They don't even read. Not you, of course. You watch the show. It's different. All right, let's check in with what happened here, or with the story of the conversation today. This is good news, right? Here's a summary from Eyewitness News.
After 11 days in park, the buses will be rolling again Monday morning. Providence bus drivers are happy to have a new contract and ready to get back to work.
It's going to be great.
One Aries has been taking kids to and from school in the capital city for 3 years. Saturday night at the Teamsters Local 251 Union Hall, the bus drivers voted to approve a new contract. According to union business agent Nick Williams, there were 100 votes in favor of the new deal, no votes against it, and one person who chose not to vote.
We're going back to work on Monday.
Meaning come Monday morning, the drivers will be back out on their bus routes for the roughly 9,000 students who take the bus.
I'm going to, welcome my kids with open arms.
The contract dispute between the union and bus company First Student had been over retirement benefits. The union wanted its drivers to start earning a pension, while the company was instead offering a 401k. The two sides settled at a defined contribution plan. Williams says it wasn't quite what they were looking for, but they're still happy.
No, not 100%, but it's enough. We have a secure retirement.
The Providence School Department took to Facebook Sunday to share the word, posting, "Good news, the Teamsters bus driver strike is over and First Student school bus service will resume on Monday morning, October 15th.
We're feeling good. We're feeling good to get back to work. It's about time.
Hey, how can you be in two places at once? There and here.
That's a good question.
That's a good job. Thanks for coming in. Appreciate it.
Not a problem.
We'll get to what you got and how this whole thing resolved by definition momentarily in the next segment. But executive summary question. Mm-hmm. Did this have to happen? This 11-day strike and all the turmoil?
Yes.
Because?
We were we were at an impasse with the company. After months of negotiations, they were denying that they were missing contributions to the 401k, even as we were proving that they were. There was such a divide between the two that there was no other choice but to take the action that we took at that point, because the sides were so far apart we couldn't even agree what the problem was.
But okay, that I get that. But the idea that you were trying to point out, and you sent me documentation, most of which I thought was easy to follow and pretty legitimate, that you would suggest, First Student still denies, but you would suggest that even the execution of the current plan that you guys had was faulty. The payments were late, things weren't being done according to. That seems to me to be a completely different issue. I mean, the idea is, look, you've got to at least do what you're already contractually obligated to do. Did you fix that? Because it seems to me this defined contribution plan is of the same family. We'll talk about the nature of it, but if they were having trouble then, what does negotiation do to prevent having trouble now?
So what we did was we took what was set up before was a match by the employer of $350 into their Wells Fargo 401k. What we did was what we wanted in the beginning, what the fight was over, was a defined benefit plan, the Teamsters New England Trucking pension plan. The company claimed liability on it. We went back and forth.
But that's a discussion of the big picture. You know what? We'll take a break because I don't want to rush Nick into this kind. It's easy. We'll come right back and we'll get a couple answers on that. Stay with us. So that headline is one of many that resulted late in the week, where I kind of said it was, a little huffing and puffing, I'm going to blow your house down. And that was an ultimatum in a sense. I never felt like the ultimatum was incredibly poignant in the sense that the city was going to go out and do requests for proposals on 3 different kinds of models to replace First Student, the company, the Teamsters, or both, or one. I don't know. But there was some hype, right, that was coming up at the end of the week. Did the hype create the urgency, or was it just, obviously the 11 days were pressure on everybody.
Absolutely.
I mean, your members have family. You were talking about that the entire way, that you weren't just busting chops, having fun here, going on strike. Your drivers felt a personal problem with this, correct?
Absolutely.
But did the city ultimatum that they were going to go elsewhere for business put the pressure on you, or First Student, or both, or neither?
I think it was First Student felt that pressure pretty heavily.
Because it's their deal, their business.
It's their deal.
Did you feel like your members were transferable to any company that might have come in and taken over the contract?
Absolutely, yeah.
Gotcha. So the urgency wasn't necessarily yours?
No. Not at all.
But you felt urgency for another reason.
For other reasons. We wanted to get back to the community. We didn't like, my bus drivers love their kids. They're professional drivers. They wanted to get back to what they were doing. They wanted to get through this and get back.
Okay. Let's talk about what we were talking about during the break. Yeah. So you were saying during the 11 days, and prior to, I'm sure, that First Student was not meeting its obligation for its, its disbursements in the 401k program. We'll talk about the nature of what you actually accomplished in a moment. But it seems to me if you don't fix that problem, who cares what kind of a deal you cut?
We're back in the same boat, right?
Right. So did you do something to fix that?
We were able to. What we did was we came out of their Wells Fargo 401k, obviously, into the Teamsters. We run the pension fund, so we have oversight. We'll know if the contributions are made or not. So there's that, and also we got some assurance from Nick Hammond over at the school committee that they would create an oversight committee to ensure that the company's making their contributions to the retirement as required to avoid a strike in the future. Now we have a 4-year deal with a no strike, no lockout provision, but if over those 4 years the same kind of thing happened, we'd end up in the same situation at the end. So Nick Hammond offering to do that was definitely
Did you
huge.
have a no strike, no lockout provision in the old current deal?
We do, but it expires with the contract.
I guess the question is, does a no strike, no lockout sentence mean a thing when push comes to shove?
Well, it does. While we're in the term of the contract, we can't strike and they can't lock us out. So we're going to guarantee no strikes for 4 years.
You were expired.
We were expired
in the last one.
in the previous
How
contract.
long have you been without a deal?
It was 7/1/2018 is when that one expired.
All right, so it was recent.
It was recent.
But once the contract ran out, that's when you felt like you could take on the job action of sorts.
Absolutely, yep.
Okay, explain what you got.
So what we got was a defined contribution into our Northern New England Savings and Investment Pension Fund at the rate of 50 cents per hour. For every employee. There is no employee opt-in. In the previous agreement, we had a 401k with a match where the employee had to put the money up first, and then first student would match. Except for the cases where they didn't. So now my members don't have to put up any money. First student automatically puts 50 cents an hour, every hour worked, into that pension fund.
Is that on top of the wages that you previously negotiated?
That was on top of the wages, correct.
Because you were saying, hey, listen, we're not looking for any more money. We're looking for $1 from what we've already negotiated to go into the pension fund.
Yes.
So did you get a slight raise on top of what had already been negotiated for raises?
We had the same raises that were in the last
But the 50
offer.
cents, did that come on top of the offer?
That came on top of, yes.
Well, that's a win.
Absolutely.
Wasn't $1 that you were looking for, but it was 50 cents, but it's 50 cents on top rather than $1 from with.
Correct.
Okay, that's kind of a win.
That's how we viewed it.
So that's mandatory. Do employees have to take that 50 cents?
Yeah, oh yeah, it's part of their employment now.
Do all the bus drivers have a retirement plan?
No, that was another win, was that half the bus drivers, more than half, I think 35%, were involved in the 401k, and the rest were not. So this is a huge win for them.
Meaning even those who weren't now are getting a bonus 50 cents an hour.
Now we're getting, they're going to end up with a secure retirement, one way or the other. And the good thing about this is the dollar we were asking for was capped at 40 hours into the defined benefit plan, which is a different plan than the plan we're in. I admit that. But there was no employee contributions at all into that plan. So it was capped at 40 hours and the employees couldn't contribute to it. This one has no cap and the employees can contribute to it.
So the 50 cents that comes on top is a fixed put from the company, but drivers can opt to go ahead and add more to their 401k if they want to, under all the laws of the land.
Not 401k, into the plan.
But it feels like, it does feel like a different version of 401k. Is there an IRS code for this particular plan? Is it 403B? I mean, what is it?
I don't know. I don't know. It is not a 401k, though. I know that much.
Well, people should need to understand, though, that 401k plans are defined contribution, because you're the risk, and so you have a style of 401k because it's about the only guarantee is the contribution, not the outcome. Your pension that you were looking for is a guaranteed outcome, meaning you put so much in, this is what you're going to get out.
Correct.
So that's what you didn't get in this deal.
And so what we were looking for, like I said from the beginning, is a secure retirement that we could have oversight on. So we have oversight on our end, and we wanted everyone to be enrolled in it without having to put their own money up. So the two real wants that we wanted, or the two needs that we were trying to address, were addressed with this deal.
Gotcha. All right. Does everybody get that? All right. When we come back, we'll talk about, how we got here and how we won't get here the next time. Stay with us. What is your take on this current?
On the strike?
Well, just on the whole situation with the buses and the strike.
I think it's a disgrace. I don't know what to say. You said earlier that you didn't think he was to blame. I kind of think he is, that he took out the language, force majeure, that allowed this to happen.
Okay, so this is, go to this camera because I just want to make sure that everybody understands what was going on there. So Dee Dee Whitman, the candidate for mayor that is running against Mayor Loza, who, by the way, will be here tomorrow night, so make a note of that, was reacting to something I said on the program last week, where I said, it doesn't seem like the mayor's at fault here, but he's got a lot to do to try to bring this whole thing together. But it's a challenge because it's a private company that has a contract with the city and its employees. The Teamsters don't work for the city in this capacity. She took umbrage, but she flipped the actual story. It's interesting. There's force majeure language in the contract that first student wanted included, which means, look, if there's something that's nature, act of God type of thing, we don't have to perform under the contract. there were exemptions for job actions and all that kind of a thing. The point is that there was some sloppy, not for the city language that was put into this deal, and Dee Dee Whitman was pointing to it, even though she had the terms incorrect. And you may remember last week I was going, I got to check on that because I didn't know about it. I thank her for alerting me that there was a language issue, but on the diligence we put in, we found out that she kind of had it flipped. To Frank,
Nick.
To Nick, I'm sorry, Frank's the other guy. You know, geez, Frank didn't show up. Nick did. You pay attention to that stuff?
I do.
Did you understand what I was speaking about?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And what's your take on that?
My take on it is, you know, we don't have a contract with the city, as you said, but usually if we're in a labor dispute, there's not a third party involved with, you know, when we're fighting corporate America. And here we have the entire city. It's up to the city to protect itself in that contract with the vendor. And I think they dropped the ball completely.
Gotcha. So you would agree with Dee Dee Whitman?
I would.
And so we'll see. Remember, there's a contract that you just made with First Student, but now First Student's got to make a contract with the city.
Exactly.
You don't really care too much about that because you have labor protections that would transfer your Teamsters probably to any other entity that would come in, correct?
Correct, but to say I don't care about it is disingenuous. I do care about it. I would like them to have a backup plan so that I can fight this company without putting, you know, every child in Providence without a ride to school. I mean, that's really...
When you say fight this company, you mean just the natural tension between employees and the company. You're not looking to fight the company.
No, not to fight the company, but to battle with this company if they're
when push
negotiations are getting to that point.
Get you. Moral of the story, we only have about a minute and a half here. Moral of the story is what? What's been learned through this process, and what do you think the future holds?
So, I mean, for us, you know, we learned that First Student definitely does not want to get into a defined benefit pension plan. You know, there was some back and forth as to why that was.
Well, they claimed it was underfunded nationally, yes.
Yeah, well, all right. And we guaranteed them that there was no liability on their end. So we didn't even bring this up until the last minute because we didn't think, what's the point? They just don't want to get into it. They're not going to get into this one. Then we brought it up and they did it. I think but the moral of the story is that, you know, my drivers in Providence will fight for what they're worth, and I will lead them every time. I mean, it's...
Some of them make a pretty good living. This is not just part-time for all of them. That your group has to do the school buses, but they get a lot of extra. For people who think, oh my God, retirement plan for some part-time, you know, worker, it's a full-time occupation for what percentage of this group in Providence?
So I would say for anyone who wants to be, I mean, the work is there for them. They can work over 40 hours easily but to hit that upper echelon of, you know, that 60-hour DOT driving time when you're shut off, I would say the top 5%.
So it's not just the vision you have of someone who's working a couple hours a week. It's 5.5 minimum for the school buses, and then it's the daily, and then it's whatever else work they want to get.
And that's correct.
So maybe that solves some of the questions people had as to why a pension argument was being made. All right, well, listen, thank you very much. Thank you for your cooperation during the strike. You were very versatile with the media and very conversant and kept us up to speed, which is not always what we get in these things from either side. So thank you, Nick,
You're welcome.
for your openness and all this. All righty, so far so good. We'll get the mayor's take on this tomorrow. I'll have the final word when we come back. Stay with us. By the way, Frank McMahon, the spokesman for First Student, actually has said he will come in later in the week to talk about this, so I don't want to leave it the suggestion that he is avoiding the conversation. I think their perspective is important, even if it's a couple, 3 days later, right? All right, so Mayor Elorza is in tomorrow to talk about this and other things. Looks like he's got himself a little bit of a race in Providence, right? We'll see you on the radio at 3 until 6 on WPRO. Thanks so much for tuning in. Great night.